So we contemplate about emptiness. It's really recommended that we do it within the context of dependent arising, so that we are not only negating the inherent existence of things, but also affirming their conventional existence. And so meditating on dependent arising has the special ability to do that, because things are dependent, then they can't be independent, so they can't inherently exist. But because they're dependent, they also do exist. Okay? So do you see that because they're dependent and they do exist, they exist conventionally, then you don't fall to the extreme of nihilism. But because they're dependent, then they don't have their own inherent nature that makes them what they are, so you don't fall to the extreme of absolutism. So it's quite interesting throughout your day to just have an awareness of dependent arising, because we always look at things and, think, okay, it's out there with its own essence, and I'm in here all by myself with my own essence, trying to control the universe. Yeah, and to look around and see how things are really labeled and designated in relationship to each other. That we don't, that you pick something out of an environment and make it into an object. Okay, it's not that it's radiating what it is from its own side. So even if you look at the colors of the tanka, we label blue because it's in contrast to yellow, and it's in contrast to green. Okay, it's not because blue is radiating out blueness that has its own nature, but because our mind is picking things out and contrasting them. So everything that we're seeing is embedded within a whole network of existence. And in the same way, who we consider I is embedded within this whole network of existence. So it's not like there's just a little me here with my own independent entity and my personality that's sitting here, but rather who we think we are, all these identities we have, are completely embedded within the whole social structure and within the whole way that human beings view things altogether. And I think that's why, at the time of death, people often freak out so much, because they're losing the whole context of this world and the social structure. So the identity they've created for themselves, which is so embedded in this, obviously can't continue, And since we hold on to this identity so strongly as this is me, then when we don't have the external things to distinguish ourselves from, then it's this feeling of like it's all just disappearing and going into nothingness. Now the problem is that we believe that there was this identity there to start with, yeah, and so it's like, last night we were talking about the face in the mirror. We believe there's a person in the mirror, Yeah, we're totally convinced there's a person in the mirror. And when, you change the angle and you don't see the person in the mirror, you freak out, But the whole thing came about just due to causes and conditions, due to being embedded in this whole structure and the mind distinguishing it from other objects, giving it a label, okay? So all this identity that we hold on to, it's not there to start with in the way that we think it exists. Okay, it exists conventionally, and we have labels of, this nationality and this gender and this height and this weight and all these kinds of things. But that's only in contrast to these other things, in a relationship to other things. It's not that we're sitting there with our own independent entity, radiating it out, you know. And so, you know, the more we cling to this identity, then when it becomes obvious that it was never there to start with, then the mind is just like, ugh, you know. And then, aside from the problems that you have the time of death, even during your life, trying to defend this entity which doesn't have any existence on its own side, you know, it's like trying to convince people that there's really this ghost sitting next to you when you come out of the haunted house at Disneyland. There really is this ghost. Don't you see it? You know? And that's basically what this whole identity we've constructed for ourselves is, you know, who we think we are, and how people should treat us, and what we should be, and what we like, and what we don't like, all this rubbish, you know, that we get so tangled up in. Okay, so if we think about dependent arising a lot, then we see that all of this is just dependent, it doesn't have its own nature. Then the mind relaxes. Okay, then we see that there's nobody there that we have to defend. Yeah, I mean, because look how much time we spend each day just defending this entity that doesn't even exist the way we think it does, you know? Yeah. So every time you get defensive during the day, which we do continually, all of us, don't we? Yeah. What do you mean I left some dirt on this fork? You know? And you're talking about the way I wash dishes? You know, instantly, ooh, you know. So every time that happens, just stop and reflect. Well, what is this thing that I think exists? And does it exist in the way I think it does? Okay, and then just chill out a little bit, relax.